Some old cars are like wine, but not all. There were some terrible models in the 1950s that car enthusiasts despise and can't forget. These flops cannot be ignored, so let's explore them together. Number 10. 1953 Willys Aero. Our journey begins at spot 10 with the 1953 Willys Aero, a small car made by Willys Overland in America. It had an inline 6-cylinder engine that gave it power for about 91 horses, and it came equipped with either manual or automatic transmission. The thing that sets this car apart from others at the time was its special shape. Think smooth curves instead of sharp corners. The roof sloped downwards towards the back, and there were circular shapes where other cars would usually have more angular features. When discussing the inside of this vehicle, it had enough seating for 5 individuals. In comparison to bigger American cars from its time, the layout and features were simple. Unfortunately, the 1953 Willys Aero is often known as one of the worst cars of its time because it didn't have enough power. The engine only had 91 horsepower, which made it feel weak compared to bigger and stronger cars that were popular in the 50s. Additionally, the Aero's design was considered to be out of style and lacking in comparison to fresh compact car models from other manufacturers. These challenges made it difficult for Willys Aero sales, which ultimately ceased production just a few years later in 1955. This caused many people to regard the vehicle as an unsuccessful business venture, one of America's least successful cars during that decade. Number 9. 1954 Hudson Jet. Did you know that back in 1954, the Hudson Motor Car Company made a car called the Hudson Jet? This little car was made to compete with another popular compact-sized automobile of its time, the Nash Rambler. It had a 6-cylinder engine that produced around 104 horsepower and was available in 2 types, manual or automatic transmission called Hydromatic. When it comes to the inside, it was simple but useful with room for 6 people. On the outside, its plain square shape and lack of fancy details earned it a nickname for having a boring beige wrapper appearance. So now you still might be wondering why the Hudson Jet made it to our list of worst cars. Well, it's because this car had some issues that affected its reputation. It faced strong competition in the small car category and was costly to produce. Additionally, its design wasn't very appealing and its performance didn't meet people's expectations. Plus, at that time, Hudson merged with Nash Kelvinator to become American Motors Corporation. This led to a short period of production for the Jet before it stopped being made altogether. Number 8. 1950 Nash Airflyte. Up next, we got the 1950 Nash Airflyte, a really cool and different car designed from back in the day by Nash Motors. Its power came from an engine with about 3.8 liters of space inside it that had 6 cylinders all lined up together to produce around 112 horsepower. This meant it was super easy to drive and very dependable too. You could choose between a regular 3-speed manual transmission or even get one custom installed called Hydromatic Automatic if you wanted something extra fancy. When we talk about the inside of the Airflyte, it had a lot of space and was pretty comfortable. One really unique feature was this nap couch in front that could turn into a full-size bed for napping or sleeping. And there were lots of spots to store your things too. On the outside, you could tell right away that this car was special. It had a cool rounded design with sloping curved shapes. This helped make it more fuel efficient so people wouldn't have to fill up their tank as much when they drove around town. Despite having innovative features, the 1950 Nash Airflyte is often regarded as one of the worst cars of its time. Its unique design divided people's opinions back then and wasn't liked by everyone. On top of that, due to its heavy body and aerodynamic shape, it didn't handle well or perform as well compared to other cars available in those days. Plus, some people who owned the Airflyte car had issues with its transmission and other mechanical parts. As a result, it didn't sell very well compared to other cars at that time and wasn't popular among consumers. Because of these problems, many consider it one of the worst cars ever made. Number 7. 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk. You may be surprised to find this car on our list. The 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk was one of the most important models of that year for Studebaker. It had a Packard engine with a capacity of 352 cubic inches and a power output of 275 horsepower. You could choose from either manual or automatic transmission options, both offering 3 gears. Now let's talk about the interior of the Golden Hawk, which had a cool engine-turned-dash design. The options offered were more diverse than those for previous Studebaker Speedster models. However, to keep costs down, some standard features like turn signals became optional extras instead. On the outside, it looked just like other Hawks in its 1956 lineup, but stood alone as a separate model rather than being part of their usual passenger car submodel category. But unfortunately, even though many people think the 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk was a great car, it ended up being considered one of the worst cars from that time period. This is because Studebaker Packard had trouble going against big automakers like GM, Ford, and Chrysler at that time. It affected how they made and sold the Golden Hawk too. On top of all this, the price for this car was higher than others in its class, which may have pushed away potential buyers. In addition, Studebaker decided to lower their costs on the Golden Hawk by reducing its standard features, in comparison with their previous Speedster model. This caused some individuals to perceive it as cost-cutting measures being taken. In regards to the design and appearance of 1956 to 1961 Studebaker Hawks models, there's a difference in opinions among people. Some believe that they come across as clumsy or crowded, without matching up well when compared to the original Lowy Coupe styles. Number 6. 1950 Crosley Hotshot. The next car on our list is the 1950 Crosley Hotshot. It was a tiny, light sports vehicle created by the American manufacturer called the Crosley Corporation, which made small cars and compact vehicles affordable for many people at that time. This amazing little ride had a 4-cylinder engine with a power output of 26.5 horses under its hood. Plus, it came equipped with a 4-speed manual transmission to let drivers shift gears easily while cruising down those winding roads ahead. Now, let's discuss its exterior. It had a cool open-top design and an agile feel with its short wheelbase. There was room for only 2 people inside and no fancy bells or whistles in terms of features. But don't let that fool you. This little guy could zoom up to 70 miles per hour thanks to its lightweight body and nimble handling skills. But sadly, the Crosley Hotshot is commonly recognized as one of America's most undesirable cars for a few reasons. First, its tiny 44 cubic inch engine didn't offer much power, making it less powerful and slower compared to other vehicles at that time. Apart from this, Hotshots are notorious for having issues with quality and dependability, such as leaking transmissions or unfitting parts, which eventually led to poor finishing. Moreover, the Crosley Hotshot was not very popular among American car buyers back then because of its small size, low power, and basic interior. It wasn't considered a practical vehicle, but more like a novelty item. As a result of these factors, both the Crosley Hotshot and other models by Crosley could not become successful commercially, which resulted in them going out of business just after a few years in 1952. Number 5. 1957 Rambler Rebel. Now it's time to talk about the 1957 Rambler Rebel, a car that might surprise you. It was made by American Motors Corporation and falls in the mid-size category. The engine is pretty impressive, packing a powerful punch with its 327 cubic inch V8 engine. This upgrade from the standard model provides buyers an increase of horsepower up to 255, which must have been really exciting at that time. Plus, you had 2 choices for transmission, manual or automatic. Both were 3-speed. The Rebel was designed with a simple yet practical interior layout that could accommodate up to 6 passengers. It had bench seats in the front and rear, which were standard for cars during its time. On the outside, it stood out from other mid-size vehicles due to its distinct shape featuring a low hood and short deck, giving it an attractive appearance. Even though the Rebel was an impressive car, it unfortunately earned a bad reputation in 1957. This is because it wasn't very popular and only about 1,500 were made that year, not many compared to other cars on the market. Some people even argue that it can't be classified as a muscle car since its body style isn't like what you would expect from later muscle cars. So while the Rebel had some great capabilities, ultimately it didn't do well commercially, and people still debate if its classification fits with today's idea of muscle cars. Moreover, there are reports that the Rebel encountered issues of low quality and reliability which impeded its success in the market. Despite having innovative features boosting its performance, it wasn't very popular due to doubts about whether it qualified as a muscle car or not, and concerns over potential problems with dependability. Number 4. 1957 Ford Skyliner. Have you ever seen a car that can transform into both a hardtop and convertible with just the touch of a button? Well, in 1957, Ford released its unique model called the Skyliner, which was truly innovative. It became America's first full-size retractable hardtop convertible to be produced on such a large scale. The mechanism behind this design was quite complex, but it allowed for seamless transformation from closed-stop mode to open-air driving without any hassle. Plus, the Skyliner was a car that cost $2,942 when it was made, and 20,766 of them were produced. It had an engine called the Y-Block Thunderbird V8 that could make 212 horsepower. You could choose to drive it with either an automatic or manual transmission depending on how you liked your cars. This car weighed around 2 tons or 3,916 pounds and measured over 9 feet long in terms of its wheelbase. But unfortunately, the 1957 Ford Skyliner had a few problems despite its impressive engineering. The retractable hardtop mechanism was very intricate with over 600 parts that were constantly causing issues and breakdowns. This complicated roof system also made the car heavier, which affected how it was handled on the road and negatively impacted its overall performance. If you owned this car back then, keeping up with maintenance and fixing any issues related to your complex roof would have been costly as well as time-consuming. Plus, despite its innovative design, the Skyliner didn't sell as many units as Ford expected in 1957, with only 20,766 produced. This high price and complexity of the vehicle made it less attractive to consumers compared to traditional convertible models. Number 3. 1955 Dodge La Femme. Next on our list is the 1955 Dodge La Femme, a big car that was designed specifically for women by Dodge. You could choose to add it as an extra feature when buying one of their custom Royal Lancer models. The La Femme had the same engine and transmission as those standard cars, which included a powerful V8 engine, probably around 185 horsepower, and either a 3-speed manual or 2-speed automatic transmission. Moreover, the La Femme had a one-of-a-kind coloring made up of sapphire white and heather rose. Its interior upholstery and accessories were also coordinated to match the color scheme. To appeal to female buyers, it included some extra bits such as matching purses, raincoats, and rain hats, along with other fashionable add-ons that women usually prefer. However, the car's design was more focused on cosmetic items like makeup products or beauty essentials rather than delivering the style and high performance expected from cars in this class. Sadly, it wasn't very successful because they designed it based on old-fashioned ideas about women instead of focusing on what ladies actually wanted and needed when driving. Instead of making sure the car worked well and was easy to use, they put all their attention into adding fancy accessories that didn't matter much in practical terms. Everyone who saw or drove the La Femme pretty much agreed that it wasn't worth buying. People thought it was just a gimmick rather than something useful for lady drivers. Number 2. 1950 Nash Rambler. Have you heard of the 1950 Nash Rambler? It was a small car made by Nash Motors for 4 years, starting in the early 50s. The engine inside it had 6 cylinders and could make up to 82 horsepower, which is not pretty powerful. Depending on their preference, drivers who bought this vehicle got to choose from either a manual or automatic transmission. When it comes to the inside of the Nash Rambler, you'll notice a modern and smooth design that comfortably fits 4 people. Plus, there's a cool wraparound windshield for added style. On the outside, this car has a unique bathtub-shaped body with swooping curves that give it an unmistakable look. You can choose between either 2-door sedan or convertible styles to fit your driving needs. But the 1950 Nash Rambler may have been revolutionary in its small, fuel-efficient build, but it wasn't exactly a crowd pleaser. Many people felt the engine was weak and struggled to get up hills or carry heavy loads without feeling sluggish. Plus, because of its low shape and light build, driving around turns or going fast made it wobble a lot. Kinda scary. Moreover, the Nash Rambler encountered a variety of mechanical and reliability troubles like issues with its transmission, suspension, and electrical systems. All these problems led to less dependable cars in comparison to its rivals. The interior space was quite small, thus limiting cargo capacity, which made it impractical for most buyers when compared to larger American sedans at that period. All these factors joined together contributed towards 1950s Nash Rambler notoriety as one of the worst cars ever manufactured. Number 1. 1958 Edsel. Back in 1958, Ford came out with a swanky ride called the Edsel. It was just right, not too big and not too small, with a powerful V8 engine that pumped out an impressive 345 horsepower at 4,600 RPM. Plus, it had some serious torque of up to 475 pounds per foot when you needed that extra power on the road. The car also sported an automatic transmission for easy driving. The idea behind this flashy new car was to give drivers something between the regular old Fords and fancier Mercury cars. They wanted people cruising around feeling like royalty inside this sweet ride. Even though the Edsel had a strong engine and fancy interior, people generally view it as one of the worst cars ever made. The biggest reasons for this are because its design was odd and controversial, especially that funny-looking grille called a horse collar, which most people just didn't like. Plus, it wasn't really clear who exactly would want an Edsel since Ford already had their brand and Mercury too, so they weren't in any particular market niche. Plus, it came out during a time when people didn't really want to buy expensive new cars because there wasn't much money around. We call this time a recession. Ford spent heaps of cash trying to sell the Edsel, but it totally backfired and actually made things worse for them. Some versions of the car also had problems with being good quality and reliable, which just added more fuel to their fire. In the end, making the 1958 Edsel ended up costing Ford way too much dough, over $250 million, so they gave up on it after only 2 years. If you found this video to your liking, kindly consider subscribing to our YouTube channel for more captivating content. Additionally, please hit the like button and share your thoughts with us in the comment section below.